Some say it helps prevent disease. But more and more people are now saying that circumcision just isn't necessary, that it's the cruelest cut. Some even call it mutilation. It's a difficult decision thousands of parents face, and Fox 5's Patrick McGrath reports on the debate over what has been called the cruelest cut.
If American moviegoers had actually seen the full Monty, they might have been surprised, because most British males aren't circumcised. And it's not just Brits. An estimated 80% of males worldwide still have the foreskins they were born with. The U.S. is the only country that circumcises most male infants for non-religious reasons. A conservative estimate is 60%. Many doctors say it is much higher than that. Erin Ivey, about to have a little boy, wanted him circumcised.
For a boy, it's kind of important to kind of be the same as your father and be the same as your peers.
Well, for me, it was something that was always done, you know. It's very common.
Most parents do not witness their son's circumcision. If they had to, there would likely be fewer of them. Marilyn Milos had her son circumcised, but later she became one of the country's leading opponents of it when, as a student nurse, she witnessed one.
And when he began to cut, the baby let out a scream I had never heard come out of the mouth of a baby before. And I couldn't keep myself from crying. And the doctor looked into my face and he said, "There's no medical reason for doing this."
And the nation's pediatricians agree. They have issued a policy statement acknowledging that circumcision is not a medically necessary procedure.
It's more or less a parental decision and a cultural decision. If I'm talking to parents about this, I'm really talking about this is it's more of a cosmetic decision.
Okay, it's measuring about 140, which is normal. Very, very, very good.
Dr. Barry Rothman has been delivering babies for more than 2 decades and estimates he has performed about 2,000 circumcisions. He does not actively encourage the procedure, but he also believes it does no harm.
It takes 30 seconds from beginning to end to do the circumcision, so literally I don't use any anesthetic because it is so quick.
Some circumcisions using other techniques take 5 minutes or more. In these cases, analgesic creams or shots are sometimes used to numb the nerve. But opponents of circumcision, who held a national meeting recently in McLean, Virginia, say there is pain no matter how it is done that is emotionally traumatic for the newborn. Dr. Rothman disagrees.
There's no long-lasting effect from this, or we'd be seeing it in those millions of males that you're talking about in this country.
Babies can't talk, and what research has been done has not persuaded the American medical establishment that circumcision is harmful. But critics say there is another reason not to cut off the foreskin. It's important for sexual pleasure. It was in the 1800s, the Victorian era, when circumcision became more common.
It was connected at the very beginning with fear of sexuality. It was argued in the medical literature that circumcision would discourage children from masturbating.
And some thought masturbation caused disease. But it was World War II that established circumcision as the norm for American males. Soldiers at the front who couldn't take baths, sometimes for weeks, were considered more likely to develop infections if they were not circumcised. So many were. And when GIs returned home to start the baby boom, their wives gave birth in hospitals, where health insurance paid for circumcision so Junior could look like Dad. And today, not looking different in the locker room is a major reason the practice continues. But some doctors say men are paying a price.
Far from being just a useless flap of skin, these studies imply that there's a great deal that we're cutting off. Some of the areas of the foreskin which is removed is exquisitely sensitive.
Dr. Sorrells and others are now doing research to document the sensitivity of the foreskin. But some men don't need convincing.
It is more pleasurable because you can last longer, and it's just more fun.
Unlike most men, Wayne Griffith and Jim Bigelow can talk about before and after. They have restored their foreskins.
It's all a do-it-yourself project. What you have to do is use tissue expansion methods.
Griffiths and apparently hundreds of other men start out by pulling what foreskin they have forward and taping it. Later, they use weights like this device called the tugger, which they wear under their clothes. Bigelow has even written a book called The Joy of Uncircumcising.
It feels peculiar and odd when you begin the program, but there is no danger.
Bigelow and Griffiths said it took them a year and a half to be fully restored, and they are convinced they have more sensation than men without foreskins.
The doctor said, you know, Viagra is the medical profession's apology for circumcision.
But Erin Ivey doesn't buy that. She listened to a radio talk show in which men who were circumcised as adults talked about before and after.
Pretty much once they got beyond the healing, they felt the sensation was equal to what they had before.
In Britain, the Public Health Service does not pay for circumcision, and some believe that was a major factor in its decline there. Circumcision opponents hope that will happen in the U.S.
Once the insurance companies stop paying for this worthless procedure, not just worthless, harmful procedure, once they stop paying for this, physicians will stop doing it.
But U.S. insurance companies aren't ready to stop paying.
I think they all want to drop it, but they're afraid of going first because they say parents perceive this as an important benefit. They won't take a chance of losing a subscriber over dropping circumcision.
So opponents of circumcision are lobbying Congress to at least stop government funding of circumcisions under Medicaid.
And you had a sore throat then.
Dr. Sullivan believes that the continued sharp growth of the U.S. Hispanic and Asian populations, which do not circumcise, will gradually lead to a decline in the practice. As for himself, Dr. Sullivan is circumcised, and so are his sons. Okay. But now, what would you recommend for your grandchildren?
I would recommend that they not be circumcised. But again, that's going to be the decision of their parents, not their grandfather.
And for now, most U.S. parents continue to decide for circumcision. From Washington, Patrick McGrath, Fox 5 News.
As you've heard, opponents of circumcision believe that if Congress is persuaded to end federal funding of the procedure, insurance companies might follow suit, and that could effectively stop the practice except for religious reasons.